When you think of states with a deep history of slavery, you probably picture the American South, right?
Mhm. Typically.
But today, we're taking a deep dive into the, well, unexpected and really complex history of New Jersey, the Garden State.
That's right.
You might actually be surprised to learn that New Jersey was the last northern state to abolish slavery, a legacy that stretched across centuries.
Quite a long time.
So our mission in this deep dive is really to uncover some of the hidden truths about slavery in New Jersey. We'll explore its, surprising beginnings,
Mm.
the really arduous journey toward abolition, the brave fight for freedom, and importantly, how its past still echoes into our present. We're really going to examine just how deep these roots ran.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how New Jersey's story completely challenges so many common assumptions we have about northern states and their involvement with slavery.
Right.
We're going to try and dissect the specific legal frameworks, the societal attitudes that allowed it to persist for so long, and how seemingly progressive steps often had these deeply regressive, sometimes cruel outcomes for enslaved people.
Okay, so to really grasp this, we have to go back to the origins.
Exactly.
Because, look, far from being just a Southern phenomenon, slavery in New Jersey took root remarkably early. We're talking the 1600s,
Very early. Introduced first by Dutch colonists.
and then continued by the British.
Right. And early on, back in 1704, New Jersey enacted a particularly harsh slave code.
Harsh how?
Well, unlike some maybe more general statutes you'd see elsewhere, this code was specifically designed for absolute control. It stripped both enslaved and free Black people of basic property rights. It enforced strict curfews.
Wow.
It wasn't just about managing labor. It was about systematically eroding any kind of autonomy or legal standing they might have had. So the critical question really becomes, how did these early laws lay such a complex and, well, enduring foundation for such a prolonged struggle for freedom?
What a foundation it was. And if you look at the geography of it, Bergen County held the largest enslaved population in the state. We're talking over 3,000 people by 1800.
Yeah, a significant number.
And those Dutch farmsteads there, they'd relied on enslaved labor from as early as the 1620s.
Decades, yeah.
Now, this stands in stark contrast to West Jersey. Over there, you had Quaker leaders.
Right, the Quakers.
And in their 1676 charter, they explicitly included a provision saying, all and every person doth be free from oppression and slavery.
A clear statement.
But the leaders in East Jersey, they didn't follow that example. Not at all.
No, quite the opposite, in fact.
Instead, they passed laws that actually penalized anyone who harbored or helped fugitive enslaved people.
Right, so two very different approaches within the same colony, essentially.
Exactly.
And zooming out a bit, while New Jersey's scale of slavery, it never matched the immense plantations of the South.
Sure, different crops, less labor-intensive stuff like wheat and barley compared to cotton or rice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was still seen as vital for the colonial economy. Even though most white slaveholders here might have only had one or two enslaved people, maybe supplemented by paid laborers, their political influence remained really disproportionately vocal and powerful. They mattered in the state's politics.
Okay, so with that backdrop, that complicated picture, what was the turning point, if there was one, for New Jersey? Was there a moment they sort of officially tried to break from this legacy?
Well, yes and no. There was a moment in 1804 they passed what was called the gradual abolition law.
Gradual abolition. Okay, that sounds like a step forward.
On the surface, it does,
Okay.
right? But the devil was truly in the details here.
How so?
It didn't free anyone immediately, not a single person. In fact, what's truly insidious, I think, is that this wasn't just gradual abolition. It was almost a cynical financial maneuver.
Okay.
It created this legal limbo, a whole new category of people called slaves for a term.
Slaves for a term.
Yeah. The law stated that every child born of a slave after the 4th of July, 1804, shall be free, but shall remain the servant of the owner of his or her mother until age 21 for females or 25 for males.
So, not free at all, really, not for decades.
Exactly. These individuals were neither truly free nor technically enslaved in the old way. It basically shifted the burden of freedom from the enslaver onto the unborn child years down the line. It's just a stark reminder of how economic interests really twisted the very concept of liberty. Protect the owner's property value.
And the outcome of this so-called gradual abolition,
It was grimly ironic, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Many slaveholders quickly realized something else.
What was that?
That these slaves for a term, these children, were actually worth far more if sold south.
Sold into the deep south.
Yes, sold into lifelong, brutal chattel slavery elsewhere. Despite later laws trying to limit this practice, owners frequently did sell these individuals, which, as you can imagine, just enraged abolitionists. Oh, I bet. It's like this twisted kind of legal loophole designed to profit from human lives right down to the last possible second.
It really was. And the legal battles just continued for decades after that, often tilting heavily against freedom. I mean, consider the prima facie slave ruling in 1821.
Prima facie slave ruling, what did that mean?
It was horrifying. This legal precedent meant that any black person in New Jersey was presumed to be a slave unless they could personally prove otherwise.
Presumed enslaved. How could anyone possibly prove that?
Exactly. Imagine the impossible burden, the constant threat this posed. It wasn't overturned until 1836.
15 years later.
Yes. It just showcases how deeply entrenched and systemic this racial control was, even, up north.
And even later, what about the state constitution?
Well, even in 1844, when the New Jersey legislature updated its state constitution, guess what?
It didn't mention slavery.
Made no mention of slavery at all. It just left the old 1798 slave law in place. And legal challenges arguing that the new constitution's language about all men are free should apply. They failed. The courts didn't overturn the existing situation.
It's just astonishing how these legal loopholes persisted for so long.
It really is.
Then, 1846, another law. This one outwardly claimed to abolish slavery. Finally.
Again, not quite. It simply reclassified enslaved people as, wait for it, apprentices for life.
Apprentices for life. That just sounds like slavery with a different name.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yes, they couldn't legally be sold out of state anymore. And they technically could complain about conditions or even buy their freedom if they somehow became self-supporting.
But the key part.
But crucially, no owner was forced to lose an enslaved or apprentice worker. It was yet another iteration of keeping people bound without actually calling it slavery anymore.
And how many people were we talking about by then?
Well, back in 1840, just before that law, there were about 3,000 enslaved people, or these slaves for a term, living in New Jersey. And that comprised almost all such individuals left in the northern states by that point.
Wow. So New Jersey really held out.
It really did.
But despite all these deceptive laws, these legal maneuvers, resistance didn't just fade away.
Oh, no, not at all. It thrived. New Jersey actually became a critical path for the Underground Railroad.
Really? Where?
Yeah, there were key hubs in places like Camden, New Brunswick, Jersey City. Perth Amboy, in particular, really blossomed into a major stop.
Perth Amboy.
It even included a multiracial boarding school called Phalanx at Eagleswood. And this was led by really prominent abolitionists.
Yeah.
Theodore Weld and the formidable sisters Angelina and Sarah Grimke.
That's incredible. Real centers of resistance.
Absolutely. And the stories of resilience from this period, they're just incredibly powerful. They paint such a vivid picture of courage. Well, Harriet Tubman, of course, a truly fearless conductor. She famously operated in New Jersey and Delaware, guiding countless individuals towards freedom.
A legend.
Truly. And there are also lesser known, but equally profound stories. People like Friday Truehart.
Friday Truehart.
Yes, he not only gained his freedom, but went on to become a landowner. These narratives, they just highlight the immense strength of those who endured and bravely fought for their own liberation, even when facing unimaginable danger and this deeply embedded systemic oppression.
And the organized abolitionists played a vital role, too, right? Tirelessly pushing against this tide.
Definitely. The Quakers, particularly in the southern and western counties, they were consistently advocating for abolition. They influenced laws that banned slave importation way back in 1786, laws that fined abusive masters and eased the process of manumission, or freeing someone.
Wasn't there a specific society?
Yes, the New Jersey Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery. They went by the acronym SPAS.
TAS.
Right. Formed in the 1790s, they were really aggressive. They intervened in courts constantly to free unlawfully held black people, and they lobbied hard for gradual abolition, often frustrating slaveholders with their persistent legal challenges.
So there was this internal push and pull happening for decades.
Constantly.
Then comes the Civil War. How did that change things specifically for New Jersey?
Well, in the larger context, Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 declared slaves in the rebel states free.
Right, the Confederacy.
Exactly. But it's really critical to remember it did not apply to enslaved people in the border states or union-controlled areas or here in New Jersey.
So it didn't free anyone in New Jersey directly?
No. But it opened a crucial door. It allowed formerly enslaved people to join the Union Army.
Ah, okay.
And that fundamentally changed the war's focus towards ending slavery nationwide. Many of these apprenticed men from New Jersey seized that opportunity. They went to fight for their own freedom and for the nation's.
So even as the nation is, violently moving towards abolition during the war, New Jersey's own ties to slavery persisted.
Unbelievably, yes. By 1860, on the eve of the war, there were still 43 people legally enslaved in New Jersey.
43 people.
And then the state initially rejected the 13th Amendment.
Rejected it, the amendment that actually abolished slavery.
Yes, they rejected it in 1865. It finally ratified it on January 23, 1866, making it the very last northern state to do so.
Wow. January 1866.
And that act, finally, freed the last 16 legally enslaved people, and probably fewer than 100 of those apprentices for life. Just think about that timeline. The war was over. Lincoln was dead.
Yeah.
And still.
Still people legally bound in New Jersey. It's staggering.
It is. And, it's important to understand why even more was needed beyond just the 13th Amendment.
Why is that?
Because southern states almost immediately enacted what were called black codes.
Right. Trying to control black labor and lives again.
Exactly. Essentially trying to recreate slavery by another name. This incredibly oppressive response led directly to the 14th Amendment in 1868.
Granting citizenship, due process, equal protection.
Correct. And then the 15th Amendment in 1870, which gave black men the right to vote.
And there's a New Jersey connection there too, isn't there?
There is indeed. In a truly significant historical moment, Thomas Mundy Peterson of Perth Amboy became the very first African-American to vote under the 15th Amendment. That was March 31st, 1870.
Perth Amboy again. That's quite a legacy.
It really is.
So, okay, what does all of this history mean for us today? Decades, centuries later, it sort of brings us to the present, right?
It does.
In 2008, New Jersey issued a formal apology for its role in slavery.
An important symbolic step.
Yeah, a crucial step, acknowledging a difficult truth. But the work, the understanding, the reconciliation, that clearly continues.
Absolutely. And we're seeing a really powerful movement now among institutions to confront their pasts. Rutgers University, for instance.
Yes, I've heard about this.
They've undertaken initiatives like the Scarlet and Black Project. They're actively digging into the university's ties to slavery and also Native American dispossession. And Princeton and Slavery Project has created these extensive digital archives and public forums.
So it's not just saying sorry.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
This isn't just about apologies. It's about active, rigorous academic excavation and, crucially, public education. It really highlights the importance of acknowledging these often overlooked histories to fully understand our present and how its echoes persist in our society today.
And education is just key to that whole ongoing process, isn't it?
It's fundamental.
Things like documentaries, like The Price of Silence, or books like Slavery in New Jersey, A Troubled History by Gail R. Safian. They're helping to educate people and preserve these truths, making sure these really deeply important stories aren't just buried or forgotten again.
Keeping the memory alive and accurate.
So when we wrap this all up, what does this deep dive into New Jersey's, unexpectedly complex history tell us? For me, it really reminds us that the narrative of slavery isn't just confined to one region.
Absolutely not.
And that the struggle for freedom was so multifaceted, so protracted, filled with both, legal deception and just incredible human resilience, even right here in the heart of what we traditionally think of as the North.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? It sort of raises an important question for all of us to consider. How might recognizing the full, often uncomfortable history of all states, not just the ones we traditionally associate with slavery, how might that profoundly change our understanding of American freedom and justice today?